For this final project, you're going to create a new Unity 2D game, and you're going to call it final-your last name. Once you have that set up, you're going to click on your assets folder, and you're going to create some subfolders. I have set up a folder called underscore scenes. I'd like you to do that too. Create a folder called fonts. Create a folder called scripts, and create a folder called sprites. It should look like this. If your zoom level is different, it might end up looking like this. That doesn't really matter. This is the slider that allows you to change that. Right away, what I'd like you to do is double click on scenes, and we're going to go to File, Save Scene, and we're going to name this scene in our underscore scenes folder main scene. And we're going to use camel case, no space in between, click Save. The next thing that we're going to do is start importing the assets that you downloaded from the class website. So you should have unzipped the assets.zip folder to your desktop. So what we're going to do is go to Fonts, and we're going to right click, and we're going to import a new asset. And on our desktop in our assets folder, we should have a font called PR Start. I'm going to import that. So now we have that we'll use later. Now what we're going to do is going to import the sprites that we're going to use in this game. So we will go ahead and click on sprites, and we will right click, import new assets, and we're going to click on pillar and Tommy. I'm going to hold control to select both at the same time. I take that back, that doesn't work. Just going to click import and on the pillar, and then I'll right click on sprites again and import new asset, and now I'll import Tommy. Alright, so now I have my two sprites. We'll come back to those a little bit later. In our scripts folder, let's create two C# scripts. The first one, we're going to create C# script. We're going to call it Pixel, again using camel case, Pixel Perfect Camera. Make sure that you use the correct name. And we're going to create another script, create C# script called Hover. Let's go ahead and let's open up both Pixel Perfect Camera and Hover in MonoDevelop. It might take you a second for that to render. While that's happening, on the class website, you will see the code that you are going to write. So you're going to write the code for Pixel Perfect Camera and the code for hover.cs here in MonoDevelop. I'm going to go back into Unity so that I can open up hover.cs as well. So now I have them both right here. Make sure that your code looks exactly like this. Okay, I've sort of jumped ahead here, and you can see that I have my hover.cs code written, and I have my pixel perfect camera.cs code written. I'm going to build all, and hopefully I won't get any errors. Build successful, that's all good. So now I'm going to come back into Unity here. I have my scripts. We'll come back to using those. Actually, we're going to use Pixel Perfect right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my main camera game object, and I'm going to either drag Pixel Perfect Camera onto here, or I could add component, and I could search for Pixel Perfect Camera that I will have right here. While we're here, let's change the color of the camera from the sort of light blue. Let's click on the eyedropper, double click on the color palette here, and let's choose sort of like a grayish navy blue right in this area. You can see I'm at 31, 38, 62, 5. Just get close to a dark gray navy bluish color like the one in the video. Let's also make sure that we change the size of this camera to 80. Our code is going to do that automatically for us, but this way, as we are looking at our scene later on, it'll just sort of work a little bit better for us. Okay, let's now go back to our sprites folder, and let's take a look at Tommy. Now what we want to do with Tommy is we want to make some changes. For starters, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change our pixels per unit to 1. We can keep the pivot in the middle for today, that's fine. We'll change our filter mode to point. We'll override for standalone, and we're going to change our format to true color, and we're going to change our sprite mode from single to multiple. Now let's go to our sprite editor so that we can apply these changes and then slice this up. So we'll go to slice, we'll go to automatic, all of the default settings are fine. Slice, we have 3 different bounding boxes around our character. We will apply this now, and when we exit out, you can see that our sprite now looks the way that we want it. Let's go ahead and click on pillar, and let's only change the pixels per unit to 1. Let's change filter mode to point, and let's override format to true color, just like so, and click apply. Alrighty, at this point, what we want to do is add the Tommy animation to our hierarchy. So I'm going to click and hold shift so I get all three selected and drag this up into our hierarchy. And I'll zoom out right here for now. And I'm going to click on the name of this and change it just to Tommy, so it's a little bit cleaner. Oops, that looks like I changed it to MMY. Tommy. If in the background you can hear my dog's squeaky toy, I apologize. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Okay, so now we have our animation set. If I press play, you should and be able to see the animation sort of take place. We have this sort of running Tommy character. Okay, so now with our animation in place, you can see that it works. We're going to select Tommy in our inspector. We're going to add some components. Let's go ahead and let's add a rigid body 2D, and we're going to change our gravity scale to 9, and we're going to add a constraint so that we basically freeze the rotation as we've done. Let's also add one more component. Let's add a box collider 2D, and the default settings should be fine. Go ahead and add the pillar now to your hierarchy. So click on your sprite asset, drag it up here, and for this, all we need to do is add a box collider 2D. So you might be guessing what we're going to do. We're going to have Tommy stand on top of the pillar. So let's position these as such. We're going to take Tommy, I'm going to move him over so he's sort of centered on it, and I'm going to pull him up out of the frame, and I'm going to then click on the pillar, and I'm going to move that down towards the bottom. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our scripts, and we're going to add that to the Tommy character right there. So if we wrote everything right and we look at MonoDevelop, we have hover right here, we should see that when we press any key, it's going to add a force upward that is going to be equal to the hover power that we've set to 300. So if we click on Tommy and we scroll down, we can see that there's a hover power right here. So let's see what happens. I press play. He again falls from the sky, and as I click the mouse, he sort of hovers, and the gravity that we have placed in the rigid body right here, it's set to 9, is going to bring him back down. If I zoom out in my scene mode here, I can see that he sort of goes way outside of the game, but gravity should bring him back down as we would expect it to. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to do right now is we're going to add a UI element. So go to Game Object, we're going to go to UI, we're going to go to Text. All right, so first let's go to Canvas, and you can see on render mode we're going to change screen space overlay to screen space camera, and so we need to choose a camera, so we're going to choose the main camera, and so that'll just create the canvas that is the size of the main camera, which is what we are going for. So now let's go ahead in text right here. Let's change the color font to white, as I'm doing right here. Let's change the position. I'm going to press Alt and Shift, which puts it in the top left corner, but I'm going to give it 20 pixels of padding on the horizontal axis and negative 20 pixels of padding on the y-axis, and I'm going to change the font to the font that we imported early on, PR Start. It's sort of an 8-bit sort of retro font. I'm going to boost the font to about 18, between 16 and 20, because what you're going to do is you are going to write your name, and so we want it to fit, and in order to make sure that it fits, we are going to, in horizontal overflow, we're going to select overflow, and vertical overflow, we're going to select overflow. And then that is it. So then I press play, the text should be there, my Tommy character should fall from the sky, and I should be able to click to make him hover. Obviously, this isn't really a game with an objective. It's more of a project to see that you understand how to use Unity and know how to follow tutorials. Our last step, let's go ahead and file. Let's go to build settings. Let's make sure that we add current. That's going to add our current scene. We're going to select web player, and we are going to check player settings really quickly. All the default settings will be fine. Go ahead and click build. In my final project, I'm going to create a build folder, and then inside of that I'm going to create a new folder called final, and select that and click select folder, and the build process is underway. So as this is processing, I'm going to open up Firefox and I'm going to go to gamebucket.io so that once this finishes processing, I'll minimize this for right now, I can go to my folder that I have created, and I'm going to send to zipped folder so that I can upload my project to GameBucket. So I'm going to go to Google Drive, go to Unity, going to go to Final, Build, and select the zipped folder, and it will send to gamebucket.io. Your last step is to submit this link to Google Classroom. This is, again, worth 50% of your final grade, and then if everything works the way that it should, your name should be up here. We should have our Tommy animation running, and it should be responsive when we click. That's it. Good luck. Hope you do well.